The cowboy who rode into town with a dead man's letter. The first thing they noticed was the blood. Not much of it, just a dark stain beneath the saddle of the stranger's horse, dripping slowly into the dust of Mercy Creek. The second thing they noticed was the rifle. A long-barreled Winchester rested across the saddle, wrapped in old leather. The man carried no badge, no cattle brand, and no sign of belonging to any ranch in the territory. But the third thing was what made the entire town go silent. The stranger was carrying a dead man's letter, and the name written on the envelope was the name of the most powerful man in Mercy Creek, Caleb Harlan. For 15 years, nobody in Mercy Creek had dared speak that name with anything but respect. Some called him a cattle king, some called him a businessman, some called him a hero. But the old men sitting outside the saloon knew better. Caleb Harlan was the reason Mercy Creek had survived, and he was also the reason half the people in town were afraid to die. The stranger stopped his horse in the middle of Main Street. The animal was exhausted, ribs showing beneath its dusty brown coat. The rider looked worse. He was tall, perhaps 40 years old, with a black hat pulled low over sunburned eyes. A scar ran from the corner of his left eyebrow down toward his cheek. His coat was faded. His boots were cracked. His beard was 3 days old. He looked like a man who had been riding for a week without sleep. Nobody knew his name. Nobody knew where he came from. But everyone saw the envelope in his hand. He slowly raised it. "I'm looking for Caleb Harlan." Nobody answered. The swinging doors of the Broken Spur Saloon stopped moving. A woman standing outside the general store lowered the basket from her arm. Even the blacksmith across the street stopped hammering. Then an old ranch hand whispered, "You shouldn't be looking for him." The stranger turned his horse toward the voice. "Why?" The old man swallowed. "Because men who come looking for Caleb Harlan usually don't leave Mercy Creek alive." The stranger studied him for several seconds. Then he looked toward the large white house sitting on the hill above town. A house surrounded by iron fencing. A house with armed men standing near the gates. A house that everyone in Mercy Creek knew belonged to Caleb Harlan. The stranger smiled faintly. "I didn't come here expecting to leave." Then he kicked his horse forward.
"My father instructed me to trust him. Your father's dead.
Chapter 1.
You trust me now."
The Last Ride. 3 days earlier, somewhere beyond the Nevada border, a dying man had given the stranger the letter. The dying man was named Samuel Reed. He had once been a respected marshal. 20 years earlier, Samuel Reed had worn a silver star in Mercy Creek. He had been young then, brave, stubborn, and honest. The kind of lawman who believed the law was stronger than any gun. That belief nearly got him killed. Samuel had spent the last 20 years carrying a secret about Caleb Harlan, a secret about Mercy Creek, and a secret about a murder that had never been solved. The stranger had found Samuel beside an abandoned stagecoach road. The old marshal was lying against a broken wagon wheel. His horse was dead. His left hand was pressed against a gunshot wound in his stomach. When the stranger approached, Samuel raised a revolver. "Stay back." The stranger stopped. "I don't want trouble." Samuel laughed weakly. "Trouble already found you." The stranger looked at the blood soaking through the old man's shirt.
"Don't trust the sheriff."
"You need a doctor." "There isn't enough doctor in the world." The stranger crouched beside him. Samuel stared into his face. For a moment, something changed in the old man's expression. "You... what?" "I know those eyes." The stranger said nothing. Samuel's hand trembled as he reached inside his coat. He pulled out an envelope. The paper was old and yellow. There was blood on one corner. "Take this." The stranger didn't move. "What's in it?" "The truth." "About what?" Samuel looked toward the distant mountains. "Mercy Creek." The stranger frowned. "I've never been there." "You will." Samuel grabbed his wrist. "You must take this to Caleb Harlan." The stranger froze. "You want me to give Harlan a letter?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because he needs to know that I remember." The stranger stared at him. Remember what? Samuel's eyes filled with tears. The night his brother died. The stranger slowly took the envelope. Samuel released his wrist. Then he whispered,
The ambush.
"Don't trust the sheriff."
Dear God, Elias.
The stranger looked toward him,
Sacrifice those men for
Why?
nothing.
but Samuel was already gone.
It hurts, Elias.
The stranger buried him beneath a mesquite tree. He marked the grave with a broken wagon spoke. Then he mounted his horse and began riding toward Mercy Creek.
Keep moving.
Chapter 2. Mercy
There's
Creek.
shelter just up ahead.
Mercy Creek had once been a beautiful town. There had been green fields beside the river. Families had settled there. Children played in the streets. Travelers stopped at the local hotel. But the river had dried up years ago. The grass had turned brown, and the town had become something else. A place where everyone knew who was in charge. Caleb Harlan. His ranch stretched across thousands of acres. He owned the largest cattle herd in the territory. He owned the bank. He owned the grain mill. He owned the saloon. And somehow, every important man in town owed him money, including Sheriff Wade Mercer. The sheriff sat behind his desk when the stranger entered the station. Mercer was a thick-necked man with gray eyes and a mustache that covered half his upper lip. His boots rested on the desk. His revolver sat within easy reach. He looked up. "You lost?" "No."
Get up there, quick.
"What do you want?" "To see Caleb Harlan." Mercer leaned back. "You and everyone else." The stranger placed the envelope on the sheriff's desk. "I have a letter for him." Mercer's eyes immediately dropped to the paper. For half a second, something changed in his face. Fear. The stranger noticed. Mercer quickly recovered. "Who sent it?" "Samuel Reed." The sheriff's boots came off the desk. Silence filled the room. "You said Samuel Reed?" "Yes." Mercer stared at him. "Samuel Reed is dead." "I know." "Then why are you carrying a letter from a dead man?" "Because he asked me to." Mercer stood. "What was his name?" The stranger didn't answer. "I asked your name." "Elias Boone." Mercer stared at him. "Elias Boone." The sheriff seemed to recognize it, but he said nothing. Instead, he walked around the desk. "Mr. Boone, Samuel Reed was an old drunk who spent the last 20 years blaming Caleb Harlan for things that happened a lifetime ago."
All of it.
Elias looked at him. "Did he lie?" Mercer's face hardened. "Careful. I asked a question." The sheriff stepped closer. "You're new here. I noticed. You don't understand how things work in Mercy Creek." Elias smiled. "No, but I'm beginning to." Mercer looked at the letter.
They're planning
"Give it
a
to me."
siege. How is this possible?
"No." The sheriff's hand slowly moved toward his revolver.
Warn the others.
Elias didn't move.
There, look at the seal.
"I said give me the letter."
Months ago.
And I said no.
This changes
For several seconds, neither man spoke. Then a young voice came from the doorway. "Sheriff?" Both men turned. A girl stood there. She was perhaps 17. She wore a faded blue dress and carried a basket of bread. Her name was Clara Reed, Samuel Reed's daughter. She looked at Elias. Her eyes widened. "You're the man." Elias frowned.
To the water.
"What man?" "The one my father told me about." The sheriff's face went pale.
Being
Clara
brave
suddenly
is-
realized what she had said.
It means you
Mercer grabbed her arm.
Is more important than
"You shouldn't be here."
You have that.
She pulled away.
Courage.
"My
isn't
father
about
told me
being
to find him."
afraid, son.
Elias looked at her.
It's about facing the.
"What did your father tell you?"
Even when you are.
Clara hesitated. Then she whispered. "He said if a man named Elias Boone ever came to Mercy Creek." She looked toward the sheriff. "I was supposed to trust him." Mercer reached for his revolver, but Elias was faster. His hand dropped to his own gun. The room went silent. Then Sheriff Mercer smiled. "You've made a mistake." Elias stared at him.
Come on, push harder. We're
Maybe.
almost to the end.
Mercer slowly stepped backward.
Don't let them get away.
"But you just made yourself an enemy of the whole town." Elias looked toward the window. Outside, 6 armed men were already gathering in the street. He looked back at Clara. "Where can we go?" Clara answered immediately. "My father's old cabin." Elias nodded. "Lead the way." Chapter 3. The Girl Who Knew Too Much. They escaped through the back door. Clara ran first. Elias followed. Bullets tore through the wooden wall behind them. They crossed an alley, climbed over a fence, and disappeared behind the blacksmith's workshop. "Keep moving!" Elias shouted. Clara ran harder. They reached a narrow stable. Elias grabbed 2 horses. He threw Clara onto one. Then he mounted the other. "Where?" "North." They rode. Behind them, gunmen poured into the street. Sheriff Mercer watched from the station. Beside him stood Caleb Harlan. The cattle king had arrived. He was a large man in his late 50s, dressed in an expensive black coat. His hair was silver. His face was calm. Too calm. Mercer looked at him. "She knows." Caleb's eyes followed the fleeing riders. "Who?" "Reed's daughter." Caleb's jaw tightened. "And the stranger?" "Elias Boone." Caleb repeated the name quietly. Then his eyes narrowed. "Boone." "Yes."
"I did it!
"Are you certain?"
I shot him down!
Mercer nodded.
Daniel's blood is on my
Caleb
hands,
looked toward the
Clara.
mountains.
How could you?
"Bring him back." "Alive?" Caleb was silent. Then he said, "Bring the girl alive." Mercer understood the meaning. "And Boone?" Caleb turned away. "Boone doesn't matter."
Give this to the sheriff.
The cabin was hidden deep inside a canyon. Samuel Reed had built it decades earlier. It was small, 1 room, a fireplace, 2 beds, a table, a broken rifle hanging above the door. Clara entered first. She immediately went to the fireplace. She pulled a loose stone from the wall. Inside was a small wooden box. She removed it. Elias watched. "What is that?" "My father told me never to open it unless something happened to him." She placed the box on the table. Her hands trembled. Inside was a photograph, a newspaper clipping, and another letter. Clara picked up the photograph. It showed 5 men standing outside the Mercy Creek Sheriff's office. Samuel Reed was young. Caleb Harlan was beside him. A second young man stood on Caleb's other side. Elias stared at the photograph. "Who's that?" Clara looked at him. "Caleb's brother." "What was his name?" "Daniel Harlan." Elias looked again. Daniel Harlan had a strange resemblance to Caleb, but there was something else. Something familiar. Elias couldn't explain it. Clara opened the newspaper. The headline read, "Mercy Creek Rancher Found Dead. Bandit Suspected." The article was dated 20 years earlier. Daniel Harlan had been found dead near the river. The official story said he had been robbed, but Samuel Reed had never believed it. Elias read the article. Then he saw the final line. "Marshal Reed claims the murder weapon was never recovered." He looked at Clara. "Where is the letter?" She handed it to him. Elias opened it. Only 4 sentences were written. "Caleb, I know what happened to Daniel. I know who killed him.
There's nowhere left for you to run.
And I know where the money is buried." There was no signature. Elias read it again. Clara whispered, "That's not all."
Elias Boone.
"What?" "My father said the letter would only make sense when you found the place where Daniel died." Elias looked toward the dark window. "The river." Clara nodded. "But there's something you don't know." "What?" "My father didn't die because of this letter." Elias waited. "He died because he found something." "What?" Clara looked terrified. The Grave. Chapter 4. The Grave Without a Name. They reached the river before sunrise. There was barely any water left, only a thin, muddy stream winding between cracked stones. Clara led Elias to an old cottonwood tree. "This is where Daniel was found." Elias dismounted. He studied the ground. There were no tracks, no signs of anything. Then he noticed something. A stone. It was buried halfway in the dirt. He knelt. There was writing carved into it. Not a name, a number. 17. Elias frowned. What does 17 mean? Clara shook her head. I don't know. He dug around the stone. Beneath it was a rusted metal box. Inside was a revolver, an old badge, and a small leather pouch. Elias picked up the badge. It belonged to Marshal Samuel Reed. Clara stared at it. My father said he lost that 20 years ago. Elias opened the pouch. Inside were 3 gold coins, but the coins were not from a bank. They were military gold. Elias's expression changed. Your father didn't lose this badge. What? He was hiding it. A gunshot exploded. The tree behind Elias splintered.
I'm ready. Let's
Down.
ride.
He grabbed Clara and pulled her behind a rock. More shots followed. 4 riders appeared on the ridge. Mercer's men. Elias drew his revolver. 1 rider charged downhill. Elias fired. The man fell from his horse. The others spread out. Clara looked at
I
Elias.
can't believe it.
How many bullets?
By God.
6.
Daniel Harlan
There are
was
3 of them.
by no accident.
I
He
noticed.
was murdered.
He waited. A rider appeared on the left. Elias fired. Missed. The man fired back. Elias rolled behind another rock. Clara picked up a fallen rifle. She aimed. Elias shouted, "Don't!" She fired anyway. The bullet struck the rider in the shoulder. He fell. Elias looked at her. You've used a rifle before. My father taught me.
This
Good.
is the only way into Mercy Creek.
Another gunman charged. Elias waited until he was close. Then he fired. The rider fell.
This.
Silence returned. Elias stood slowly. He looked at the dead men. All of them wore the same black leather band around their wrists. Clara recognized it. Those are Harlan's men. Elias looked toward the distant ranch. Then Caleb Harlan is worried. Chapter 5. The Man on the Hill. Caleb Harlan stood on his balcony watching the sunrise. Behind him was a dining room filled with expensive furniture. A silver coffee pot sat on the table. He poured himself a cup. Sheriff Mercer entered. You failed. Caleb didn't turn. The girl escaped. And Boone killed 3 men. Mercer stopped. Caleb slowly turned. 3? Yes. Who?
Don't trust the sheriff.
Tom, Willis, and Grant. Caleb placed the cup down.
Well now, Caleb.
Those men were not
Seems your
fools.
luck just ran out.
Mercer said nothing.
Easy
Caleb
now,
walked toward him.
Let the wind.
Did Boone use 1 gun? Yes. How many shots? Mercer hesitated. 6. Caleb smiled. So he killed 3 men with 6 shots? Yes. Caleb's expression changed. Then he's not just some traveler. Mercer swallowed. I know who he is. Caleb looked at him. Who? Elias Boone. Caleb waited. Mercer continued. His father was Thomas Boone. Caleb's eyes narrowed. Thomas Boone. He was one of Daniel Harlan's ranch hands. Caleb went completely still. Mercer whispered, 20 years ago, Thomas Boone disappeared the same night Daniel was murdered. Caleb's hand slowly closed into a fist.
Everyone in Mercy Creek to
Find his
understand
son.
one thing.
Chapter
I am the
6.
law now.
The Truth Behind the Fire.
Instructed me to trust you, Elias.
Elias and Clara returned to the cabin, but they didn't stay long. They knew the gunman would return. Clara packed
Drop your
food.
weapons and step away from
Elias
the horse.
checked the
It's
horses.
over.
Then Clara asked,
Mine is surrounded.
Why did my father trust you? Elias looked away. I don't know.
Over, Caleb.
He knew your name. I never met him. You're lying. Elias stopped. Clara stared at him. My father told me that if you came, I should trust you. Elias sighed. Then he reached inside his coat. He pulled out an old photograph. Clara looked at it. Her eyes widened. It was the same photograph they had found in the box. But Elias had a second copy. In this photograph, another man stood beside Daniel Harlan, Thomas Boone.
We found all 3
Clara
leads to
whispered,
the North Ridge.
Your father.
Deputies were harmed.
Yes. What happened to him? Elias looked toward the mountains. Caleb Harlan said my father stole from him. Did he? No. What really happened? My father saw something he shouldn't have. Clara waited. Elias finally spoke. On the night Daniel Harlan died, my father saw Sheriff Mercer leaving the river. Clara's face went pale. He told Samuel Reed. And? Samuel believed him. So why didn't he arrest Mercer? Because Caleb Harlan threatened Samuel. Clara looked confused. Why would Caleb protect Mercer if Mercer killed his brother?
Mercy Creek is over, Mercer.
Elias looked at her.
We ain't scared no more.
That is the question. Chapter 7. The Gold. They discovered the answer beneath an abandoned church. The church had burned years ago. Only the stone walls remained. Clara remembered something her father had once said. Daniel wasn't killed for revenge.
Go!
Elias looked at her.
They're gaining on us.
What?
I'm trying, Elias.
He was killed for money. They searched beneath the floor. After an hour, Elias found a loose stone. Under it was a narrow tunnel.
Elias, there's too many.
They crawled inside.
Just hold
The tunnel led to a small underground chamber. There were wooden crates, old ammunition,
Too many of them.
and sacks.
Hold the line, man.
Elias opened one. Gold coins. Hundreds of them. Clara stared. That's why Daniel died. Elias shook his head. No. He opened another crate. Inside were old military documents. He read one, then another.
Mother told me to
His
talk
expression
to him.
hardened.
He
This
said
wasn't
only
stolen
he
money.
can help.
What was it? Payment. For what?
My
Elias held
father
up the
should trust
papers.
you. Please
Caleb
let me
Harlan
go.
had been selling cattle illegally to the army. Clara looked confused. So? The cattle were supposed to feed soldiers. Elias pointed to the documents. But half the cattle were never delivered. Where did they go? Elias looked at her. Mexico. Clara's mouth fell open. And Daniel discovered it. Yes. He was going to expose Caleb. Yes. But Caleb killed him?
I couldn't bring
Elias
myself
shook
to
his head.
expose Mercer.
No.
I was scared.
He looked at the final document.
Scared of what he'd do.
The order was signed by Sheriff Mercer. Clara whispered. Then why did Caleb cover it up? Elias finally understood. Because Caleb wasn't the mastermind. A voice came from behind them. No. They turned. Caleb Harlan stood at the entrance to the tunnel, a revolver in his hand. 24 armed men stood behind him. Caleb smiled. You're finally beginning to understand. Chapter 8. Caleb's confession. Elias raised his revolver. Caleb laughed. You're outnumbered. I've been outnumbered before. Caleb looked at Clara. You have your father's eyes. Clara stepped forward. You killed my father. Caleb shook his head. No. Then who did? Sheriff Mercer. Clara froze.
I know I
Caleb
should've said
continued.
something Sooner.
Your father discovered the truth 20 years ago.
Scared
Then
of
why didn't you stop Mercer?
the truth
Caleb
is,
looked down.
I pulled the trigger.
Because I was afraid.
I killed Daniel.
Elias stared at him.
I'm so sorry,
You?
Clara.
I didn't
Yes.
mean to. It
For
was
the first
an
time,
accident,
Caleb
Elias.
looked old.
I swear
Not
I didn't
powerful.
want Daniel dead.
Not dangerous. Just tired.
It was me, Elias. I killed
Daniel was my younger brother.
So sorry, Clara.
He discovered the cattle operation.
I swear it
He
was
planned to
an
expose Mercer and several others.
Never meant for it to happen,
Who?
Clara. It was me.
Caleb looked at Elias.
Pulled the trigger.
Men far more
It was
powerful
wrong
than
because of
me.
Me.
Elias said nothing. Mercer killed Daniel.
Tell you, Clara, but
Caleb
the truth
continued.
is,
Then he threatened to kill my wife and children if I
I got
spoke.
it. After all,
Clara whispered. So you let everyone believe Daniel was murdered by bandits?
We actually found
Yes.
That's him.
You let your brother's name become a lie.
Eyes anywhere.
Caleb lowered his gun.
You certain, Elias?
I was a coward.
After all this time.
Elias stared at him. And Samuel Reed? He knew. Why did he wait 20 years? Because I paid him to keep quiet. Clara's face filled with anger. My father hated you. He did. Then why did he send me to you? Caleb looked at her. Because he knew the truth was bigger than all of us. Suddenly, a gunshot came from above. One of Caleb's men fell. Another shot. Another man collapsed. Caleb looked toward the tunnel entrance. Mercer appeared. But he wasn't alone. Behind him stood 12 armed riders. The sheriff smiled. Enough secrets.
Samuel Reed's
Caleb turned.
Where did you find it?
Wade. Mercer aimed his gun.
It's time we open.
You should have killed the boy when you had the chance. Caleb slowly raised his revolver. You're not taking them. Mercer laughed. You still think you have a choice? Then he fired. Caleb fell. Clara screamed. Elias grabbed her. Run! They escaped through the rear tunnel. Behind them, gunfire erupted.
My father instructed me to trust
Chapter
him.
9.
Your
The
father
night of the
instructed
storm.
me. You trust
A
me.
storm came that night. The desert sky turned black. Lightning tore across the mountains. Elias and Clara hid inside an abandoned mine. Caleb lay wounded beside them. The bullet had passed through his shoulder. Clara bandaged him. You should let me die. She glared at him. My father would hate you for saying that. Caleb smiled weakly. Your father hated me anyway. He loved you once. Caleb's eyes filled with tears. Daniel was my best friend. Clara looked at him. Then why didn't you avenge him? Caleb stared into the darkness. Because revenge is easy. What is hard? Living with what you failed to do. Elias sat nearby. He finally spoke. You can still make it right. Caleb looked at him. How? Tell the truth.
Don't trust
And
the
then?
sheriff.
Face the consequences. Caleb laughed. You sound like Samuel.
The sheriff.
He was right. Yes. Caleb looked toward the entrance. Mercer will come. Let him. He has 20 men. Elias checked his ammunition. I have 12 bullets. Caleb smiled. Then we have a problem. Elias looked at Clara. No. He stood. We have a plan. Chapter 10. The Last Stand. Mercy Creek woke to gunfire. At dawn, Sheriff Mercer rode into town with 20 men. He announced that Elias Boone had murdered several lawmen. He announced that Clara Reed had been kidnapped. And he announced that Caleb Harlan had been killed. But then Caleb Harlan walked into the street, alive, blood covering his shirt. The entire town froze. Caleb looked at Mercer. You're under arrest. Mercer laughed. You have no authority. Caleb pointed toward the bank. Ask the people inside. The bank doors opened. Samuel Reed's old records were carried into the street. Ledgers, letters, military documents, names, payments, everything. The truth was finally visible.
It's all here.
Mercer's face changed.
Intentional.
He looked around.
God, Elias.
The townspeople were no longer afraid.
Sacrificed those men for nothing.
The blacksmith stepped forward,
We have to keep moving.
then the
Caleb.
hotel owner,
It hurts,
then the
Elias.
ranch workers.
I can't.
One
Don't
by
talk
one,
like that.
people began
almost
standing
there.
behind Caleb. Mercer raised his gun. Anyone who steps closer dies. Nobody moved. Then Elias appeared behind him.
Keep moving.
You should have checked the roof. Mercer spun.
There's shelter.
Elias
Up
was
ahead.
standing above the saloon, rifle in hand. Mercer aimed. Elias fired. Mercer's gun flew from his hand, but Mercer wasn't finished. He drew a second revolver. He fired. Caleb stepped between them. The bullet struck Caleb in the chest. He fell. Clara screamed. Elias fired again. Mercer fell into the dust. Silence. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Caleb opened his eyes. He was alive. Barely. Clara knelt beside him. Why? Caleb looked at her. Your father deserved better. She cried. So did you. Caleb smiled. No. He looked toward the sunrise. I got exactly what I earned. Chapter 11. The Letter. 3 days later, Mercy Creek held a funeral. Not for Caleb, for Samuel Reed. His body was brought back to town and buried beside the river. The entire town attended. Elias stood at the back. Clara stood beside him. After the ceremony, she handed him an envelope. What is this? My father left it for you. Elias opened it. There was only one sentence. Some men spend their lives running from their fathers. Others spend their lives becoming the man their fathers hoped they would be. Elias read it twice. Then he folded the letter. Clara looked at him. Are you leaving? Yes. Where? I don't know. She smiled. You always say that. Elias mounted his horse. Clara stepped closer. You could stay. He looked at Mercy Creek. The town was changing. People were repairing buildings. Children were playing in the street. The river was still dry. But for the first time in 20 years, nobody seemed afraid. Elias smiled. I've been riding alone for too long. Clara smiled back. Then don't. He looked at her. What? Don't ride alone. Elias slowly dismounted. For the first time since he had entered Mercy Creek, he removed his hat. He looked toward the mountains, then back at Clara, and smiled.
Evidence is right here, Clara. We have to warn the others.
Epilogue. Years later. 10 years passed. Mercy Creek changed. The river returned after a series of heavy winters. The old saloon became a restaurant. The sheriff's office became a courthouse. The Harlan Ranch was divided among the workers who had spent their lives building it, and on the hill above town stood a small wooden house. Elias Boone lived there. He had married Clara. They had 2 children, and every evening, Elias sat on the porch and watched the sun disappear behind the mountains. One evening, his son asked, Pa, were you really a gunslinger? Elias smiled. No. His daughter laughed. That's not what people say.
It means you understand.
People say many things.
Important than fear.
Did you ever kill a man?
That inside you.
Elias looked toward the horizon.
Being unafraid,
Yes.
son.
Were you scared?
Facing the mountains.
He nodded.
Even when
Every time. His son frowned. I thought gunslingers weren't afraid. Elias laughed softly. That's what makes them dangerous. The boy looked confused. Elias leaned forward. A brave man isn't a man who feels no fear. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder. A brave man is someone who feels fear and still chooses to do what's right. The children grew quiet. Clara stepped onto the porch. She carried an old wooden box. Elias recognized it immediately. Samuel Reed's box. She placed it on the table. You remember this? Elias nodded. Inside was the original letter, the one that had brought him to Mercy Creek, the one that had started everything. Clara opened it. There was something they had never noticed. A second sheet of paper was hidden beneath the first. Elias unfolded it. His face changed. What? Clara asked. Elias handed it to her. The paper contained only one name, a name they had never heard before, and beneath it were 3 words. He is still alive. Clara looked at Elias. What does it mean? Elias stood. He walked toward the edge of the porch. The sun was disappearing. For 10 years he had believed the story was over. For 10 years he had believed the men behind Caleb Harlan and Sheriff Mercer were gone. But now he knew the truth. The man who had ordered Daniel Harlan's murder had never been found. And according to the letter, he was still alive. Elias looked toward the distant road. A lone rider was approaching Mercy Creek, slowly, quietly, carrying a black flag beneath his saddle. Clara stepped beside him. Do you know him? Elias stared at the rider. No. The rider stopped at the edge of town. He looked directly toward Elias's house. Then he raised one hand. In it was a silver badge. Samuel Reed's badge.
Shot him down!
The same badge Elias had found 20 years after Daniel Harlan's murder.
Could you?
Clara whispered. Elias? He reached for his rifle. The rider smiled. Then he turned his horse toward the house. Elias stepped off the porch. His children watched from the doorway. Clara stood behind him. And for the first time in 10 years, Elias Boone put on the black hat he had buried beneath his bed.
Just hold on.
He checked his revolver. Then he looked at Clara. Take the children inside.
For this to the judge.
Who is he?
Only you.
Elias stared at the approaching stranger.
Rest easy.
I don't know. The rider stopped 20 feet away. He slowly removed his hat. An old scar crossed his face. Then he spoke. Elias Boone? Yes. My name is Jonah Reed. Elias froze. Clara stepped forward. Reed?
It's the last one he
The
wrote.
stranger nodded.
Got him.
I was Samuel Reed's brother.
To us.
Elias lowered his gun slightly. Samuel never mentioned a brother. Jonah smiled. He didn't mention many things. He reached beneath his coat. Elias immediately raised his revolver. But Jonah pulled out a folded piece of paper. He threw it onto the ground. Elias picked it up. It was another letter. The handwriting was unmistakable. Samuel Reed. Elias opened it.
Says, Elias,
The first line made his blood run cold.
ride west now.
If you are reading this, then the man who killed Daniel Harlan has finally come for you.
Trouble, Elias.
Elias looked up. Jonah was already reaching for his gun. The children screamed from the porch. Clara grabbed them. The sun disappeared completely. And somewhere beyond the town, a rifle fired. The bullet struck the wooden sign above Elias's head. He looked at the hole, then toward the mountains. A dozen silhouettes appeared on the ridge. Jonah whispered, "They're here." Elias smiled, not because he wasn't afraid, but because after 10 years of peace, he finally understood something. The past doesn't die. It waits.
Gold is mine.
And sometimes, it comes riding back at sunset. Elias cocked his revolver. Then let them come. The first gunshot echoed across Mercy Creek, then another, then 20 more. And as the town erupted into chaos, Elias Boone stepped into the dust with his rifle in his hands. The legend they thought had ended 10 years ago was only beginning. The end.
Elias Boone.